Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's JC again, and today I'm doing a first thoughts over the new Destined 1 ride line for Dragon Empire, the Destined 1 of scales Aelquilibra. That's what I'll call him. Really cool stuff. A lot of cards for his new little archetype, little overcharge archetype, and I'm really excited to cover this one. I'm just going to jump right into it. For starters, quote unquote, there's a lot of European phonetics in these names, so I'm just going to do my best. The starter is Rider Dragon, just your normal D series starter. Always like having dragon ride lines. Then the grade 1 is Rider Dragon. He says auto when this unit is rode upon by your Gatling Cannon Dragon. You may call this card a rearguard circle, and if you called Soul Charge 1, then he has a rearguard ability that says Overcharge, Continuous Rearguard Circle. If this unit was chosen by the ability of your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Aelquilibra and its card name, this unit gets power plus 10k. So just so you know in the video, I'm going to ignore most of that text when I read Overcharge effects, just to save time. So Overcharge is always activated if the condition for Overcharge to activate is if your unit was chosen by your grade 3 Vanguard's ability. Because, as you'll see in a second, that is Aelquilibra's main skill, is giving rearguards power when choosing them. Okay, but the rearguard skill is pretty good. You instantly are going to get some rush. You can either call that behind Vanguard, or you can call that out to attack. And then if you're able to keep them on board for your grade 3 turn, you're going to have a 23k booster, that's kind of the main theme of this deck, as you'll see as we go on. Then the grade 2 in the ride line is Gatling Cannon Dragon. He says auto when this unit is rode upon by a grade 3 with Aelquilibra in its card name. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Choose up to one grade 3 or lower from among them, reveal it and add it to your hand, and put the rest to the bottom of your deck in any order. If you revealed a card with the Overcharge ability, Soul Charge 1. Really, really good. It's absolutely free. I'm so far a really big fan of the 2 ride lines they've revealed, both for Levidros and for this. Ride lines are just getting, I think, better with each set, which is obviously a really good thing. So this one will add you any grade 3 or lower card. So you'll find your Overcharge pieces. If you're going second, you can find your Restander, you can find Persona Ride, and then the Soul Charge is actually pretty important because this deck does eat through Soul a lot, which we'll get to more in just a second. So yes, really good card. Then the boss unit is Destined 1 of scales Aelquilibra. He has 2 act skills. So his main skill is Act Vanguard once per turn. Soul Blast 2, choose 3 of your rear guards, and they get power plus 5k until the end of the turn. If you chose 2 or more rear guards with the Overcharge ability, draw 1, and this unit gets power plus 10k until the end of the turn. So that first skill is a lot better than we all thought it was going to be, because everyone, myself included, was assuming that you would only get the draw and the power to van if you chose 3 units. But you only have to choose 2 rear guards with Overcharge, which is going to be really, really easy in this deck because pretty much all the support that they gave him has an Overcharge skill. And then the draw is going to be super important. 10k to van is also really, really good. That way your Vanguard column is also going to be scary. And then the Divine skill is Act Vanguard if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, costs Counterblast 1, choose 2 of your rear guards and they get power plus 5k until the end of the turn. If your opponent has 4 or fewer cards in their damage zone, choose one of your opponent's Vanguards and deal it 1 damage. During the trigger check caused by this ability, the power gain by the trigger effect gets minus 10k. Okay, so I think a lot of people get underwhelmed sometimes by damage ping skills, but keep in mind, pushing your opponent from 3 damage to 4 damage or 4 damage to 5 is a pretty big deal, especially 4 to 5, because then at 5 damage, your opponent has to guard every attack, and at 4, they have to play out the whole turn, assuming that you're going to get a critical trigger, or pinging damage is really good. And what makes this Divine skill, I guess, stand out from the other damage pings is it takes away 10k power by the trigger effect. Now, I know a lot of people were disappointed by this because it didn't just nullify the trigger. So there was a meme that was if you check the over trigger, your unit's not getting 100 million power, it's getting 99,990,000. And yes, I also would have liked it if it had nullified, because then your opponent doesn't heal or get draws. But keep in mind, this is still a better damage ping than all the other ones that have come before. Like if your opponent hits a front trigger or a critical trigger, that basically does nothing. So I think the skill is really, really good. The first skill especially enables you to just make fat columns. That's the whole gimmick of this deck, basically, is to make fat columns, and when your opponent's in a good range for damage ping, you just ping them 1 damage. I really like this card. I think that I don't know exactly what the ceiling of this deck is going to be like, but as of now, I think it's going to be pretty good. It at least will be a really, it at least will make huge numbers, and I think it'll be really hard for some people to manage. My brother was saying this is basically something along the lines of, this is Welstra, but instead of you minusing power to your opponent, you gain a bunch of power. Something like that. I don't know. Now for all of the support, because yes, there were like 5 different support cards, I think. So first off, we have Rider Fza that says overcharge. When this unit boosts, if it was chosen, blah, 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 this unit gets power plus 10k until the end of that battle. And then at the end of that battle, if you did not countercharge this turn, cost retire this unit and countercharge 1. Having a countercharger is very good in this deck because, yes, the Divine Skill uses Counterblast, but there's also a really good double rare and an order in this deck that use Counterblast. And so that countercharge will be very, very helpful. The next card was featured in the anime as well. It's Panzer Shk Dragon. He says overcharge, auto rearguard circle when this unit attacks. If he was chosen, blah, blah, blah. Costs Energy Blast 3, and this unit gets power plus 15k until the end of that battle. And at the end of that battle, draw a card and retire this unit. I think this card's really, really good. I know a lot of people were upset or disappointed, not upset, disappointed that it was Energy Blast 3. But I think that's a fair cost considering that this card is instantly going to be, on a non-Persona Ride turn, a 33k column. Like, that's really good. And it replaces itself. I'm not unhappy with that. Now, it does compete with what is by far the best support card in the deck. So we'll get to that later. But I really like this card. And you'll really want Panzer Shk going first, because you can't get 4 attacks going first in this deck, unfortunately. The next card we have is an order, which really surprised me because it wasn't featured in the anime. It's to equilibrize the scales of the world. You play this with cost Counterblast 1. If you have a Vanguard with Aelquilibra in its card name, choose up to 2 grade 3 or less cards with different card names and the overcharge ability from your drop and call them to rearguard circle. This order is really cool. It's very rare for Dragon Empire to have drop zone recursion, much less 2 units. And I think Counterblast is really fair for this because most of your overcharge cards just gain power for free anyway, or for, the energy, which is, I don't think is going to be that rough in this deck, honestly. But yeah, really cool order. I think this order is really good. I think this will be at least a 3 of in Aelquilibra decks. And what's really cool about that is that your Panzer Shks, one of the things I was worried about when I saw the anime is they retire themselves. So I was like, oh man, it's Dragon Empire. Like, once you use it, it's done. But nope, this order's just going to call your Panzer Shks and your Restanders or your big boosters right back. And that's going to help you maintain the draw and the 10k on Aelquilibra's first skill. Then a double rare, Drag Rider Adel. When this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you have 2 or more units with the overcharge ability, cost Counterblast 1, draw a card, and soul charge 1. Then overcharge, if this unit was chosen, then it gets power plus 10k. So another just 23k booster, or attacker, because again, it doesn't say it has to boost. And the first skill I actually think is really important because Soul Blast 2 I think will be difficult to manage if you're not soul charging and if you're not persona riding, and you're gonna want to use the skill of Aelquilibra every single turn. The only thing that stinks about this is the Counterblast 1. However, the deck I don't think is actually going to fight for Counterblast that much. Like, sure, you have your order and your divine skill, but going first, you won't be able to use your divine skill. And I think more often than not, you'll want the draw off of this guy than you will the order, because going first, you're probably not going to have that many overcharge units in drop. So I think this card's really good. I don't know what else to say. And it will be important to try to keep most of your deck as overcharge units. We'll talk about generics after we finish all the support, or what type of support can go in the deck, but this deck seems pretty locked into its archetype right now, and will get better down the line as we get more overcharge units. Then for the last card, we have Drag Rider Sho. He says continuous rearguard circle. During your turn, if you have 3 or more units with the overcharge ability, this unit gets power plus 5k. Really good, so he gets power on his own as long as you have enough overcharge units, which includes himself. This skill will be good if you have to call him down going first, because his second skill is overcharge. Auto once per turn when your Vanguard attacks a grade 3 or greater unit. If this unit was chosen, you can Energy Blast 3, stand this unit, and it gets power plus 10k. So it's got the once per turn clause because of Drag Fza, which is hilarious that this one was future proofed, but Shiranobi's were not. Anyway, so this deck will have 4 to 5 attacks, which is really, really cool. Similar to Rakagur kind of stuff in Dreduled. And it gets power on the restand too. So this deck is going to make, like I said earlier, fat columns. Like your ride line calls itself out, it's 23k booster. You have 2 other cards that are grade 1s that can turn into 23k boosters. You've got grade 2 and grade 3 units that break the 20k amount, and it's just like we saw in the anime where they were breaking 50k columns. And I think the whole point of this deck is just going to be from turn 3 onward, you're just trying to bash your opponent in, and then whenever it's most convenient, you're gonna ping them a damage. Now, I think more often than not, you'll ping them as soon as possible, but it depends, because even though they're gonna lose, they're not gonna get the power gain off of normal triggers. If you notice that your opponent's playing draws, or they have a lot of heals in deck, you probably don't want to ping them a damage on when they're at 2 or less. Like I said, you're going to want to push them from 3 to 4 or 4 to 5. 4 to 5, definitely. This restander is very, very important, though. This is the other card that I said was going to compete with Panzer Shk, because they're both Energy Blast 3, and I think for a fair reason. You just have to be careful. One of the upsides is because they have 2 cards that use Energy Blast 3, and they're crucial for the deck. There's not really room for gun cyclers, so I think you're actually going to have plenty of energy, at least for turns 3 and 4. If the game goes longer than that, 5 onward, then yeah, there might be an issue here or there. So I'll very briefly go over what I think about generic support that can go into here. In terms of Regardless Piece, I think this deck's it's got 2 routes. It can either go the defensive route and play some of the new stuff that's going to come out, like Twin Cast, or that other defensive one that's coming out in set 3, that with the manga one. Or you can go for I think I'm either going to go for Ladder or for the Sword, because the Ladder builds Soul, and if you're up against Retire decks like Welstra, or against, there's always Retire in some of the best decks, then you'll get to keep all your overcharge pieces. Or for the Sword, just so that you can have the countercharge, so you don't have to worry about your double rare or your divine skill or your order, because all 3 of those cards are really, really good. Plus, you can just draw cards. That card speaks for itself. Unfortunately, I don't think this deck can play either the set 10 cycle or the divine set 1 cycle, because Soul Blast 2 is a very expensive cost that you will need to use every single turn, so you don't really want to be going through your soul like that. And unfortunately, you have 2 really good cards that use energy in this deck, so I don't think the gun cyclers can make their way in. Now, if I'm wrong, but I don't know, man. It seems like this deck is almost completely built. I did see some people talk about Shenri, because Shenri, you play in order, so yes, you could use Shenri, and you could even have something early. I don't know if that's worth it, because she probably won't be live very often, unless you're using the order every turn. One thing I don't recommend is I don't think you should play Latifa, the set 11 cycle, because even though you know, again, you have an order and you can dig for your overcharge pieces, Soul Blast 1 is still like, I think it's going to be really risky. You're going to want to try to keep as much soul as possible just for your Vanguard skill. But anyway, let me know what y'all think of the support. I personally love the aesthetic of this deck, and I'm going to play the snot out of it when it comes out. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Appreciate the support, and keep an eye out for the next video, which I guess, or the next first thoughts, which I guess will be for Alden. Thank y'all and have a great day.
Hey guys, Lupe here. Alongside with the new Destined one, we got 2 new Brant cards. They both are for Welstra. Very excited to go over them. For those of y'all that watched the anime, you got to see them early, and for those that didn't, well, we're going to be going over them today. We have 2 cards for Welstra, one being a grade 2 rare and a grade 1 triple rare. They're both fantastic cards. However, they are a little bit hefty in cost since they both use the same cost, and now we'll get into the card and you'll see why. Starting with the grade 2 rare, her name is Blitz Server Haratina. Her skill is auto when the student is put on Guardian Circle. If your order zone has 3 or more products, cost EB3, and she gets shield plus 20k until end of the battle. She's a 25k shield, which is one of the biggest shields in the game, off of just one individual card, so that's very nice. However, Energy Blast 3 is kind of a hefty cost when you take into consideration the triple rare, which we'll look at next. However, I do think this is a great card. It could see play as like a 1-2 of at max, just because you do want to maximize on your operators and your resource generators. But this is a very nice card, and you know, most Welstra lists, including myself, already run Synthetica, so maybe you can swap out Synthetica for this card instead, just for bigger shields. However, unlike Synthetica, you have to wait till later in the game, but she does have bigger shield. Now we'll move on to the triple rare, which is my favorite of the 2 cards. She's a grade 1, I stated earlier. Her name is Blitz Published Lichta. I have no clue if I said that right. But she has 2 skills, both of which are goated. Her first skill is when this card is discarded from hand during your ride phase or main phase. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard of Welstra in its card name, you may call this card to rear guard circle. So right away this works with original Welstra, the new promo boss, the funny one. It works with Astrum support, and then it works with Divine Welstra. And that's a great skill because you can pitch her to ride, you can pitch her off of Freiheit, so very good, very easy to get off. And she's a free body, and it works really well with her second skill. It's an active rear guard circle. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard or Welstra in its card name, cost EB4, so it's EB4, which is pretty hefty. You get to choose a product from your order zone with grade less than or equal to your opponent's Vanguard, operate it, and reduce the cost of that product's original operate abilities by CB1 until end of the turn. So, very strong axe skill, which is why the cost is heavy since it's not a counterblast or soul. They let us keep that for our operators. And it's a very good skill. I mean, being able to make maximum essentially free for the first operation is really good. It's just, you know, while Welstra does gain energy pretty quickly just off of playing the game and setting Uranthite, which is the satellite order, running this card along with the new rare and using Welstra's operation skill each turn will eat through your energy fast. So you kind of just have to manage your energy now, which you already had to manage your counterblast and your soul. So I guess nothing too much has changed, but I really like this card. You know, she's kind of like Uber to where it's based off the opponent's grade, so I guess that makes it more balanced since it is only energy and it's an axe skill. So on turn 3 you can't operate maximum if you go first. However, you can still operate either the kennel or Ubetzel, which this isn't that bad to operate Ubetzel, I guess, since you don't really want to operate it during battle phase if you're on turn 3, and unless you're running Xena, you can't operate it during main phase, so you can just call her down EB4 if you wanted to use it that turn to kind of thin a card from deck. Wouldn't be the worst option. But yeah, guys, those are the 2 cards that Welstra got today. I am very pleased with them, very happy with them. I cannot wait for them to come out in English. I'm going to be doing some testing with them already on CFA. But yeah, thank you guys so much for enjoying this part of the video, and thank you so much for watching the video in general. Catch you in the next one.